Chapter 2, The Hall of Wonder. A loud crash is the last sound Fremine heard before passing out after crashing into the cold hard floor with purple glass around him. Candy, but he doesn't know that. And it took him a while to wake up. When Fremine did, however, his head was aching in pain as he slowly sat up, trying to regain his senses. He slowly started looking around for his siblings, still feeling tired, not aware of the new area he is in at this second, since he's still feeling dizzy from the fall.
Lenny? Lynette? Are you guys okay?
He asked. Nothing. Trying to remember exactly why they weren't there since he blacked out. Then Fremine remembered that they strangely disappeared while falling in Lenny's hat.
Oh, yeah. They disappeared in the fall. Never mind.
He said out loud with a disappointed frown. Fremine sighed sadly. He then focused on the ground and noticed the glass around him. Nervous, he looked at himself to make sure he didn't accidentally hurt himself. But luckily, none of it had left any cuts. So he carefully got up and looked around him, realizing he isn't outside anymore. And he gasped. Now he's in a huge hallway filled with clockwork and mechanical stuff. Toys, clocks, gears, etc. The room looked very fancy and had a mix of bright colors in it. There's fancy doors all around the room with designs all over them, and there's a table in the middle.
What is this place?
He asked, looking around. Fremine started wandering around the room and noticed there were some designs on the walls. When he did, he suddenly heard the sound of a ticking clock. But moving that aside, the room looked like a picture book with all of these designs on them, and other designs you'd see in a picture book, like rainbows, grass, and just pure happiness, etc. But still gave Fontaine vibes. Then he noticed the doors having instructions on them, told through art that looked like a storybook.
Huh? What's this?
He said, looking at the image on the door. On this door he was looking at, it had a painted image of a penguin in the same room as the one Fremine is in right now. It shows the penguin holding a key next to the door. It also shows an arrow pointing at a hook, then down to the penguin's fin, basically symbolizing to grab the key. Fremine looked confused, but then turned to where the arrow pointed and noticed a hook with a key on it.
Huh. When did that get there?
He asked himself. He questioned the thought of where the key came from, since the hook and key were not there when he first woke up here, unless he didn't notice it, but he swears it wasn't there before. Nevertheless, Fremine grabbed the key and found it to be a robot key. It kind of looked like a normal key, but this key was like a Fontaine robot. It had the ability to make sounds, and it also had lights for eyes. Green lights.
Whoa.
He said, really fascinated as the robot made sounds, but it couldn't speak. He then turned to the door, then inserted the key. The robot then scanned the lock and door, but it started beeping and showing a red light.
Huh. I guess it doesn't work on this door.
He then started walking over to the next door to see which door this key would work on. While Fremine was heading over to the door, however, he suddenly stopped. He wondered if maybe he has to turn the key in the other direction. So he turned back and tried the key on the door he saw the instructions on again. But like he thought, it didn't work. He saw the same red light, and the key was making the same beeping sound.
I guess I should have expected that.
He said, mumbling to himself, annoyed for thinking that. He went back to the other door he was heading to before and tried the key on it. It also didn't work. Fremine then noticed that the door had instructions on it like the other door did. It shows a penguin using the key, which he did. He then looked at the other doors and noticed the other doors had the same instructions on them. So he just went from door to door trying to unlock one of them. So hopefully he could find his siblings, Lenny and Lynette, and hopefully get Pears back. And finish doing upgrades on Verite, unless Charlotte really needed Verite. But to Fremone's disappointment, none of the doors would open with this key, which he found weird. What was this key actually made for? Meanwhile, the key was moving in his hand.
This key... It doesn't seem to have much purpose.
Fremone then stared at this key and was facing the left, just wondering, why wouldn't this key work on any of the other doors? He then looked up from the key and noticed a huge space without a door.
Why is there no door here?
He asked himself, walking up to the wall. He looks at this blank wall for a while, before looking down, as a small door appears in front of his eyes? Like it had faded in like in a magic trick. Surprised, because... how did it... never mind. He crouched down and noticed the door showed small instructions like the other doors did. A penguin opening the door and walking through the door with the key turned to its side in the lock. He then looked at the key and put it in. The key scanned the door and started blinking green. Then it made a click sound. He turned the knob and it worked, like the instructions show. He smiled and pushed the door open and peered in there. Remine gasped as he saw a world that looked like a fairy tale book, but also looked like Fontaine, but underwater? It had pretty colors, but also had some weird stuff, like weird colored birds and flowers with rainbow colors. But it felt so lively, with animals walking or flying around and sea creatures swimming around. Fremone was so shocked, he thought out loud.
What is this place?
Fremone just couldn't believe what he was seeing. It really looks like a fairy tale world he could imagine in one of his fairy tale books. He then started to think,
maybe this is where I can find Charlotte? So hopefully I can find Pear. Or maybe I can find my siblings. But hopefully I can find both. But there's no way I could get through this door.
Fremone was thinking too much about the world and seeing Pears and his siblings again, that he forgot how he would actually get into this world or the door. It was too small, and he was a lot taller compared to the door. So he wondered if maybe he could squeeze in some way. So he tried laying on his side to see if he could try, but it didn't work. So, after a few minutes of trying, Fremone got up from the door and started walking around, thinking up and down. How would he be able to get through the door and explore? Maybe he'll see Lenny, Lynette, Charlotte, Pears, and Verite again, if she wanted the upgrades like she asked earlier.
I know there's probably a way, but I don't know where to start. Do I just use something around here to maybe open the door wider? Or is there some way I can shrink myself?
He then thinks for a second.
No, that idea won't work. I can't shrink myself. That's impossible.
He thought about looking around again for maybe stuff that could help him, when suddenly he heard something. A ticking sound. It sounded like a clockwork toy behind him. He turned around to find a clockwork penguin, like Pears. However, it wasn't his clockwork penguin, since it was different colors. It was walking up to him from the top of the table on the right, but with a bottle in its hand? Confused, he walked up to the penguin.
Huh? What's this?
Fremone grabbed the bottle from the penguin's fin, then the clockwork penguin waddled away. He was very confused watching the penguin leave, but He shrugged and put the key in his pocket. That somehow existed, but he didn't question it. The robot key didn't like that, however, but it didn't make a sound. He then turned to the small drink bottle he had. Its design was really pretty, being designed with a gold ring around the bottle, being used as fancy decoration to make it stand out. And it also seemed to have a teal liquid in it. There was also a tag around it that said, "Drink me?"
Drink me? That's suspicious.
Fremini looks at this bottle with hesitation and suspicion, narrowing his eyes thinking about what Father said.
Fremini, if I ever send you out on a mission, never, ever drink or eat anything suspicious. I wouldn't save you if you poison yourself or your siblings. I would be very disappointed in you.
Yes, Father.
Arlecchino smiled and patted Fremini on the head and walked away, leaving Fremini standing there holding back tears. Fremini continued looking at this bottle with a skeptical look as memories played. He then shakes his head.
No, I shouldn't drink it.
He said, putting the bottle back on the table. Now what? How is he gonna get out of there and get Pearce and his siblings back? That bottle could be poisonous. But it was tempting. But he knew he shouldn't. So he started looking around for another option. Maybe there's another way out. But there's nothing. Maybe some machine around here could help him. But that doesn't sound possible either. Even though some things in the room are machines like the key, it doesn't seem like there was any other way. Unless he wants to stay there forever, it seems like he has no choice. Fremini lets out a sigh and picks up the bottle again to give it a second look.
I really hope I don't regret this.
The bottle gave off a very strange vibe, but it felt inviting. He took off the lid and sighed before drinking whatever was inside of the bottle. It tasted alright. It was a good drink. It kinda tasted like sparkling water, but it didn't seem to be poisonous from drinking it. But it could have an effect later. He sits the bottle down, thinking to himself.
Weird.
He thought, crossing his arms. It didn't seem to do anything. So he sighs and walks over to the front side of the table closest to the small door, about to grab the key from his pocket. That wasn't there before, but again, he didn't question it. When suddenly he noticed his breathing started to get very heavy and fast. He stepped back and put a hand on his chest. His heart was beating really fast, as if he drank some cups of coffee or caffeine, and his head started to spin. Something was wrong. Why was all of this happening? What was this weird feeling he was getting? Did he make a mistake drinking that? He felt very weird, like his body was moving downwards, kind of like one of those lifting platforms. But everything was spinning. It was kind of hard to tell what was going on, till he regained some senses as his breathing slowed down a bit. He looked back up again. He was shocked to find he was shrinking. He was so confused and surprised by this.
Whoa! I'm shrinking?
Fremini said, staring down at his hands as he was slowly losing his original height. Even though he was very surprised by this sudden change, this was amazing. Suddenly, all of this shrinking reminded him of something. He went back to a memory of his childhood when reading fairy tales, and remembered wanting to shrink himself down to the same size as components to look inside of machines. Watching himself shrink slowly was very interesting, but strange at the same time.
Oh, this is incredible.
Fremini stood there for a moment, looking up at everything getting bigger than him, and imagining fixing machines that were broken. When the feeling completely stopped and he stopped shrinking, he turned around, really happy that he didn't let his gut feeling stop him. He started walking up to the door before stopping to take out the key, but finds it to be empty? In realization, he started to worry.
Wait! I don't have the key! Where is it? I just had it!
He said, panicked, before hearing the key making robot noises from above. He stood there looking up at the top of the table as he heard a ticking sound again coming from above. The penguin from before was looking down at Fremine as the key was next to it. Fremine stood there, shocked and upset. He couldn't say anything. He swore that he had the key. How did it get up there? Or how did he forget it? He just stood there before muttering the words upset.
Oh my seas.
He said, looking up at the table, worried and upset. He sighs. Maybe he'll never get out and find Pears or his siblings again. He then looked down at the ground, thinking about what Father said, and noticed a bowl of food.
Huh?
For a minute said, confused, as he bent down. It was seafood. One of his favorite types of foods he likes eating with his siblings. He assumed this is probably the way to get the key, because it wasn't here before, but it seemed like it.
I guess I have no choice.
A robot gave him stuff to eat with, and then walked off. Fremine sighed, knowing this was probably the only other way out, so he started eating, hoping for the best. End of chapter 2.